Well, welcome out there once again to my program, and welcome to my guests that are here today. We have the regular, not a panel show, but it's the school committee roundup, talking about various things that are happening in the school department and how it affects the taxpayer, students, administration. So, let's get started. Welcome to the program. Paul Coogan, you're a first-time
First-timer, Rick. Thanks for having me. I really
guest
appreciate
on
it.
my show.
Thank you.
And Gabe, you've been on many times over the years.
Right, and not always about the school committee either.
That's right. Well, you're on a game show.
That's correct.
And you did very well.
Well, sometimes not so well.
You were doing good. You missed a game show?
No.
No, okay.
Actually.
Well, that's nice to hear. So, you had a school committee meeting Monday night, I hear, on the
Yes.
radio. It was quite interesting. Apparently, the mayor didn't show up, or he wasn't there for most of the meeting.
Well, he wasn't there for the two hearings that we had.
On Monday?
That's correct. He was there for the full committee.
All right.
So the hearings on, it was school choice and the
Public input on the budget.
That's correct. So the people who spoke on gave their opinions on the budget. He wasn't there for that. He wasn't there for the hearing on school choice, which was actually a relatively short hearing.
All right, so his not being there wasn't that much of a thing?
No.
No, okay.
No, it wasn't a problem.
Not a problem. It seemed that they made a big deal of it on the radio, talked about it for quite a while. Why wasn't he there? So what took place Monday night exactly?
Well, the major thing that happened was that we did take a vote on the budget to be sent to the city council. The budget reflected the 3% cut that was sent to us, the full committee, by the finance subcommittee, of which Paul is a member, and so now the issue is that that's still about $2 million, or a little bit more than $2 million, maybe $2.3 million more than the net school spending minimum, which is what the mayor is going to send to the city council. And this is no surprise. He has said that going back to at least the last school committee meeting, and he certainly said it the last this previous meeting, this most recent meeting.
Now, the budget is going to be finished by June 1st. Is that correct? Monday is May 30th. I don't know if we have 31 days in May, so is June 1st Tuesday?
I believe so. I believe so.
Is this thing going to get over to the?
Well, this is what I foresee, and Paul, you can chime in, or you can correct me if I'm wrong. The mayor can submit the figure that he wants. So in other words,
By June 1st.
That's correct. He does
So
not have to submit what we passed, which passed by a 4-3 margin. He can.
And is what you passed, is it different than what the mayor?
I'm positive, based on what he has said, even as late as the last meeting, that he's going to pass the minimum net school spending figure, which is about
figure?
It's about
133 and change, somewhere around there.
correct.
Yeah.
Whereas we're at about 137. Right. The figure that we passed was at about 137.
100.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
But there are things going on right now between the mayor's office and the finance department of the schools that are trying to get some middle ground on this number, because again, as Gabe said, the mayor can send in the number he wants. But we're trying to get to a position where all parties are on the same page. And I know they're working diligently to check and double-check line items and trying to find some additional funds, and the city is doing the same on their end, and hopefully something good will come out before June 1st.
Now, the paper reported that the city got a letter from Mr. Sullivan,
Correct.
and he's basically has said that you know, apparently if I'm correct, that there what the figures that the city is using ignores outstanding pension liabilities. And
Right.
that the amount is not 1.5 million, but he's claiming that it's 2.7 million.
Right, and quite frankly, this took me by surprise. I don't know what Paul feels about this, because this was an element that we never really considered. We know that the figures that were in issue before had to do with the net school spending figures. It had to do with the increase in transportation costs, the increase in insurance, health insurance costs, and there was some dispute about that, where the city was saying it was $800 and some thousand, which they would be willing to give us $1 million for, whereas the school department was saying that the total was about 1.5 million. But now this was something totally new, which we certainly didn't expect, and obviously the administration didn't expect, they say that the mayor says that he's going to contest this because
Does this throw the whole budget out of?
Well, the question is, a lot of this money is going to have to be paid next year. Even a lot of that 1.5
Because
million
the mayor
will probably
claims that this
happen
has
next
to
year.
do with FY16,
Correct,
not
but-
17.
But you can roll over some of that money into the following year. And my guess is that he's going to give us the $1 million, I believe.
From the city to the school.
Correct, which was
department.
promised by Mayor Sutter some last year.
Will
And
that be
so-
enough, though?
No, it would not be enough, and then he's going to contest the pension ruling, and then we'll see if he has to
Which
pay
is
more.
1.2
It will be
million
into the next
difference.
year.
Yeah.
I think what happened, Rick, was that the formula that was agreed on by the city, the mayor, city council, and the school committee got changed. They went from a per pupil based expenditure to a percentage. And when they did that with some items, they didn't do it with all of them. They went back to the state and said, listen, if that's the method we're going to use it for everything. So there could still be some more things coming up. There could be some additional funds involved. But right now, that's where we stand at 2.7 million.
Now, go ahead.
It's so confusing because everything changes so quickly, and that was
Imagine the
mentioned.
people out there.
That was mentioned at the
People
last.
are bewildered.
Oh, absolutely.
What goes on.
We're bewildered because at every meeting there's something different. It was mentioned yesterday, and about. In fact, there was a lively discussion at one point about the changing methodologies.
Well, when you say yesterday,
again.
yesterday is
Oh,
Tuesday.
no, yes, I'm sorry, it was Monday.
Okay.
About the changing methodologies, about what I find frustrating, I think I've mentioned it here, Ed Costa mentioned it yesterday at Monday's meeting. There must be a template that we have some agreement on, where we don't have to have this constant wrangling every year about what constitutes net school spending or what methodology we're using, where it's cut and dried, and you just follow what the you follow the guidelines as you see it. This constant wrangling every year, which we've seen over the budget, what constitutes net school spending, what doesn't, what methodology we're using, what we're not using, what we should use, is not only counterproductive, but it's actually embarrassing.
Well, Paul, let me ask you this. Like Gabe just mentioned, there's a lot of discussion about the budget, and it seems to go on ad infinitum. But does that, as I think Gabe is alluding to, does that take away from the management of the school and the teachers and students and education that you might be,
right.
As a committee, discussing?
Right, tremendous impact. Tremendous impact. We're not talking about what's going on at the door in school or how things are various. We're talking about money and numbers and who owes who what, and it goes back and forth, and it really overwhelms the meeting. It overwhelms the schools. You're involved with giving people layoff notices.
Yeah, upwards of 50.
50, when there's another batch coming out. It kills morale. It drives a lot of people to, I got a letter, there's a job in Seekonk, I'm going to Seekonk. People leave. And what happens is that then all summer for the principals and the administration team becomes filling jobs. And then we roll into September and we're off again. It's horribly unwieldy, and I'm hoping this comes to an end shortly. I know people that know the numbers better than me are working on it, so let's all say a prayer.
Now, a lot of computations are made on a computer these days, and there are a lot of programs. People can find your tax return by using a program. You put in a few numbers, and it kind of gives you, an idea of what you owe or what you're going to get back. Nothing like that in the school department.
Well,
or maybe it doesn't even, it can't even work.
I think a lot of the information is relatively straightforward. However, we've seen in the budgets year after year what counts for net school spending, what does not. But it seems like every year there's some kind of a wrangling about this. And maybe we could compare this to a bad marriage. We've constantly heard that
between the school department
and let's say the city part of
the city side,
the city side, where you may have some problems, but the item that really makes things that much worse is a lack of money. You've seen that happen year after, and
that makes a bad marriage.
So if you have some problems, maybe you can work through them. But if there's a lack of money, that just aggravates everything to the point where it becomes an impossible situation.
Well, Paul, not to interrupt you, Gabe, but I mean, Paul, as you know, the city is always chronically in need of money. The city just does not generate money, and if anything, it might be in a very in a more difficult position these days in trying to get that income. Do you find that that has a great effect on?
Well, yeah, and obviously the state budget. We were waiting to see what the Senate was going to do. We were waiting to see what the House is going to do, and the funding formulas they have to give back under Chapter 70 to Fall River. The state is extremely generous with us, and obviously we're always looking to see if they've changed some rulings on special needs, or they've changed some rulings on transportation, or they've changed some rulings on straight school funding. That budget, that budget was reported out last week by the Senate. So all these time frames are coming in, and as you accurately pointed out, now we're looking at June 1, and we're sitting there saying, where are we going? Now people are scrambling, and as I said, hopefully we can get some stuff done. I mean, it's right up to the gun.
Now, June 1st, the budget is going to be provided to the City Council. Do you know how much time the City Council has in regards to going over the budget?
Well, they have a deadline of July 1st, which is the new fiscal year.
The month, yeah, they have the month of June.
So by July 1st, the council is going to have to reach some conclusion in regards to the budget,
Absolutely.
and that is pretty much state law.
Right.
Yeah, I think those time frames they use every year, so I'm pretty sure we roll along with that.
Now, does the city council ever call members of the administration before them to answer the questions in that interim, the June 1st to July 1st?
They have in the past. I believe they did last year. They may have the previous year. So yes, they have done that.
Well, and Gabe and I were at a meeting as spectators, you know, on opposite sides of the room when Joe and Melissa were down with the superintendent and her staff answering questions for the council 2 months ago. Was that right? I guess, yeah, 2 months ago, Rick. They spent a good few hours there.
So that probably will be some sort of outcome once the budget
Right.
is given to the city
That could
council.
happen again.
However, the mayor will, I understand that by law, he can submit the figure that he wants. So that he has claimed that he will submit the net school
So
spending
in other
minimum.
words, he can overrule the school
Right.
committee.
So in a sense, whatever we voted was meaningless. And I don't have a
more or
problem.
less advisory.
Well,
sense.
we can vote a particular figure. However, my understanding is that he can submit the figure that he wants. So in a sense, it was a meaningless vote. And I don't have a problem with that up
Well,
to a point.
when you say meaningless vote, you have constituents out there, the school department people that are affected, school teachers, administrators, and you have your custodians, etc.
Right. I think what
So in other words,
what Gabe meant was that the vote that we took could be overridden.
Oh, yeah.
The vote we made was showing people where we stood on what we'd like to see the city step up and help the schools with. Now, he and I both know it could be that the final call is going to be the mayor. But he didn't mean it was a meaningless vote. He meant it was a vote that could be overridden by the mayor, and we understand that, but we're going forward with what we think would best serve the students and the families in Fall River.
Now, the mayor, okay, so let's say the mayor overrides, or he submits the budget he thinks he wants to be placed in front of the city council. To extend this in a bit, what is the authority of the city council, if you know? So they get the budget, and it's X number of millions of dollars, so much on the city side, so much on the school department side, and they don't like it at all. Now,
Where do they go? Yeah.
they have the authority to say yes or no. Is that correct?
Well, my understanding is they can cut it, they cannot increase it.
All right. So if it's lean to begin with,
We don't want to talk about that. You're right, Rick. We don't want to talk about that.
yeah. So, but it'll be interesting anyway
Yeah.
to listen to the city councilors as to what they have to say. All right. So we got talked about the budget. How about Diamond has a new superintendent of schools, Mr. Auburn,
Correct.
and I'm sure you know him.
Yes, I do.
Good choice.
Well, I don't really know a lot of the people who applied against him, so I would hope for the best. He's been there for a long time. He's come up through the ranks.
To tell you the truth, this is Gabe and myself, our second stint together. We were both on the Diamond School Committee.
Oh yeah.
And when we had to pick a superintendent back in the day, and Mr. Auburn was there, and some of the other people might have been there, but we kind of know a little bit about the school. But it was funny because now we're both on the Fall River School Committee, and we're both on the Diamond School Committee.
Yeah, I guess what I'm leading toward is that Diamond was able to pick a superintendent fairly quickly.
Well, they had an idea that they were going to lose their superintendent much sooner than we did. So that was part of the issue.
Is that right? Much sooner?
Definitely, because we didn't find out that Meg Mayo Brown was leaving until about mid to late December, whereas they knew prior to that because Martha Montleon had told them that, that she was leaving at the end of the year.
Now, the Fall River Superintendent of Schools, did she have to give notice number of months beforehand? I mean, can't walk in the last day
No,
and
she
say,
gave,
"I
she gave
quit."
more than was required, I believe. She
I would
was
think
more
so.
than fair with the notification of her getting a new position.
So basically, for the time, from the time that you found out until now, you're pretty much on track, in a sense.
I would think so. We may be like a week, 2 weeks beyond the original schedule, but that happens. Part of it was that in terms of the schedule for interviewing the candidates, different people can't make it different days, so it extends the time that you have for doing what you have to do.
Paul?
Also, we've done it both ways. Diamond hired their superintendent with the school committee being the sole vetter of the candidates. What we've done in Fall River, we have teachers, administrators, parents, business people, union representation. We have a broad spectrum of people that all have stake in the schools of Fall River that are going to do the initial interviews. I think those are going to be over sometime around June 6th. Then it will come to the committee. I don't know if they're going to recommend 2 or 3 or more of the candidates, and then we'll have our own chance to interview them, and we'll go forward from there. But we got a tremendous committee doing the original vetting. It's a great cross-section of Fall River, and we have the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, which do this all over the state, guiding us through the process. And it's, I'm hearing we have a tremendous pool of candidates. They can't divulge anything to us. We have a good pool of candidates, and they're already lined up the interviews, and they're moving right along.
Yeah, and my understanding is, I agree with Paul. I think I would rather have done it this way.
So your process might take a little longer.
Yes, but
it's a little more
I
complex and.
And it gives everybody a stake.
That's right. If everybody has a stake in the issue or input into the issue, number one, and I just feel it's better to have done it this way.
All right, there's another figure here that maybe give me some explanation, or the viewers out there, is that apparently 8.3 million is less than level funding.
The original number that was over, the net school spending number of 133 was about 8 million over, so somewhere around 141. That was the number that we worked on in the Finance Committee to cut. There are still some things that could go on to reduce that number. We're working with our unions, we're working with our administration, and we're working with people in the schools to help reduce the deficit from that number to the net school spending number. But I don't know if Gabe was as confused as I was the other day. It looked like with what they were doing, we were down to almost like 2.3 million in difference or something the other
That's
night.
what I
and I
thought.
didn't know it was that low. I thought it was more like 3 or 4, but
Well, I think that it reflected the amount of money that the city had to
pay the
kick in.
schools, okay. Well, they were counting for that then. Okay.
Correct.
That
That's what I thought.
2.7, Rick, is what he's referring to, that money they were accounting for being kicked in.
Now, what effect does this have on class size? You know, you have, in other words, if you're going to let teachers go, if that happens, less teachers, you still have the same number of students, so that means some classes are going to grow in size. Am I correct in this assessment?
We have a cap that we negotiated with our union on class size, and maybe
What is the cap?
I think it's around 30 or 31, and then they have to have an 8 after that, and they can go up to 33. And like at Durfee, where we worked, if you have an AP chem class of 33, it's like teaching a college class. My concern with those class sizes is when you get on to grade 1 or pre-K, and you have 30.
kids.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
and that's where.
You know, yeah.
That's you can imagine. I saw you burst out laughing as soon as I said
control,
it.
you can
That's
imagine.
exactly right. They're
I mean,
looking
they're
for
kids,
a
they're
crayon.
young.
They're throwing eraser. They're horsing around, as we all did. And there's 30 of them in there with one teacher. I think those are where we have to focus. I don't think we can even address any class size till we get through this budget crunch. And, you know, I know Gabe and I all ran on trying to reduce class size, but this dropped in our lap, and this is what we have to do right now.
Now, as of right now, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because you were more intimately involved with this process on the Finance Committee, but I don't think that the cuts that we have made are going to tremendously affect class size now. What if we have to make more cuts? That may be a different issue.
Gabe's correct there. He's absolutely correct. We minimized all cuts to classroom teachers. We tried to take a little bit from all the pots in the schools and try to do it as equitably as we could. Some people aren't happy with this. Some people are okay, but we were not trying to take classroom teachers out. All of us singly said that. When we took a teacher, usually it was from an open classroom or an unfilled position.
Okay, I want to mention, we're getting a little close to the end of the program. I want to remind the audience, next Monday, May 30th is Memorial Day, and we usually have, well, we're going to have a ceremony at the Miller Monument in the south end of Fall River. I believe you
I've been
show
there
up,
before,
Gabe.
yes.
Paul, you're
I'll be
welcome
there.
to come by. And that's going to be this coming Monday, 11:30, at the Miller Monument. Miller Monument is at the intersection of South Main and Shove Street. And I always conduct a ceremony over there on Memorial Day. And we have great cooperation. The city sends the speaker down in a podium, and actually sometimes brings chairs. We have a local resident, Mr. Joseph Burrow. He's been taking care of the monument, I mean, splendidly. He manicures the lawn, cuts the bushes, does a great job, picks up any papers that land on the grounds. So we'll have that ceremony, and Corporal David Miller, as I've mentioned a number of times on my program, lived across the street from the monument. And he was in the Philippines during World War II. And as you recall your history, the Japanese invaded the Philippines, and there were a number of Americans that were cornered, you might say, and Filipino soldiers also. They were eventually captured and placed on the Bataan Death March. 4,000 to 6,000 of them were murdered. I said that, murdered, before they got to the prisoner of war camps. Corporal Miller made it there, but he died there. And as the story goes, a priest from St. Patrick's Church in that area consecrated that ground as a symbolic resting place for Corporal Miller. So it's really holy ground. So hope to see you there Monday. And gentlemen, thank you for coming on our program. Paul, you're welcome to come by. Nice.
I appreciate you having us. Good.
Gabe, thank you.
Thank you.
3 weeks, don't forget, let Joe know, and we'll be back in 3 weeks for the school committee roundup.